Hey, welcome to part two. So this is the part two of chapter one, talking about the basics behind strings and numbers. So following the same pattern as before, I write down the challenge, the input, and the output. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to try to be more technical as time goes on. Since we already know what strings and floats are, I'm already trying to implement that so I can be clear when I do these calculations. So from here, I know that the challenge, number two, is going to calculate the volume of a right circular cone, if I can speak properly. The input is going to be two lines of text, i.e. strings, um, but they're going to be made up of numbers. The integer r will be first, followed by the integer h, and both of these are between 1 and 100. This tells me I don't have to worry about the size of these numbers. No 1 millions, no 1 billions, no higher. Um, the output, if I can spell, is going to be a float. And that float is going to be the output of the volume that we're looking to describe. The book also gives us the formula. Notice that I'm writing this in terms of the double multiplies just to make sure we're used to it. Now this is going to be a lot quicker because we've already covered a lot of the basics of what we want to do. But one of the key different things that we're going to want to do is start by defining what do we need to do. Well, we need to input the two lines. We're going to calculate the volume, and then we are going to output the volume. We already know that in this case, let's do from out in. We're going to want to print the volume. Notice that my script is confused because it's not defined yet. And there's no quick fixes. Sometimes things like Visual Studio Code might be able to fix this if it's able to do it. Well, okay. Um, One way that I could go about doing this is literally by defining it. So your book gives this example right here. We know that the volume is roughly like this. We have a problem in the fact that we don't know what pi is. Well, maybe sometimes when it's a predetermined information, we might actually define this before pi. How many decimal places do we go? 3.1415926535793. Okay, a lot of digits. Probably don't need it for any actionable thing. So if I define it as is, it's a pretty basic script. I have the pi's, I have the r's, I have the h's. It calculates the volume, then it prints it out. So let's do this. It's not done because we obviously haven't done the inputs properly yet, but I want to see if the formula works how we might want it to do. Well, indeed it does. That is the score that we want. Now, our problem is that we're having to manually input it into here. And so it's going to take a while, especially if we want it to be a more dynamic program. We might want this to be a little bit more interesting. So we learned last time that the input command can help us. Okay, so this should allow us to be more uh, dynamic. So we have, what was it, 4 and 6, yeah? 4, 6, we have a problem. Now, if you remember from the beginning, our input said to write them in terms of they're coming in as text. So we're going to have to transform it. So sometimes we might refer to this as casting or turning into anything else. And I implied what I could do to possibly fix this before by turning a float into an int, like so. So by doing it like this, it says take my input in first, and then turn it into an int. So notice it says convert a number or a string into an integer. and return 0 if no arguments are given. Otherwise, it's going to be confused. Don't worry about some of the more technical stuff. And then it gives an example. In binary, we have the number 100 is actually a 4. So it's turning it from one type, a string of binary, into an integer, which we're more comfortable with. We do this twice. Take the input that we see here and do this. Okay, let's fix it. So we had a 4, we had a 6. Cool, fantastic. But once again, we have a similar problem before. That I recommend that you might want to put in enter the radius of the volume, enter the radius of the cone, enter the height of the cone, and this could be a much more readable and user-friendly way of doing it. Like I said, this is going to be a lot more straightforward. I think that's all we need to do in regards to that. Yeah, it really is that simple. Um, You'll notice in the book this is in capital. It's fine. It's written that way because in another module, in another Python package you can import later, it ends up storing it as in the capital PI, but it's whatever you like. Remember, these variables are anything that you would like to do it. So please name them carefully, but in a way that you can remember them later. But otherwise, this challenge was pretty much already answered from the previous one.